You are listening to Inner Journey with Greg Friedman here on KX 93.5 FM, community-supported radio in Laguna Beach, California. Tonight, we have so many cool things going on, but right now, we have John Kralovec. He studied with a Muskogee Creek elder named Bearhart. He studied with, I don't know if you guys have known this name, but this is a very big name to me, Wallace Black Elk, as well as Mayan Indian shamans, and he's experienced so many different kinds of initiations and ceremonies and uwipis and lodges, and down up here in the States and down in Mexico. And his work began with a Mayan priest and master teacher named Miguel Angel Vergara. John, such a pleasure. Welcome to Inner Journey.
Greg, hi. Great. It's great to be here. Thanks so much.
It is such a pleasure to have you on. I'm just going to jump on in, if that's cool with you.
Sure, that'd be great. Thanks.
My first question for everybody is, had a number of different healers and shaman and medicine men, people of a multitude of different ways of being of service, artists, musicians, all across the board. And to a person, there was a catalyst or a series of events that really thrust them onto their path. Is that true of you as well?
Yes, definitely. Definitely so.
Care to elaborate a little bit more?
Okay, sure. Well, I think for me, the thing that really pushed me in this direction happened in the early 1980s. I was living in Los Angeles. I had just started a career as a healthcare executive. I was excited about where my career was headed. I was sort of on a fast track to sort of the American dream and being in a direction that I was very, very excited about, and actually began to think that maybe I was destined to lead a charmed life when, over a period of 6 months, a whole series of events started happening, and my life completely unraveled on me. My father died of cancer kind of suddenly in New York. He had catastrophic medical bills that the hospital was coming after me to pay, which I had no way I could do that. My first wife, who was in law school at the time, decided she wanted a divorce. The company I was working with decided that they were going to move in a different direction than where I had been trained in the area I'd been responsible for, so it looked like that my days at the company were numbered. I lost a house in the whole process. And I spent about 6 months just, pretty much in panic and desperation, wondering how I was ever going to get through this and how I was ever going to get out of it. The only thing I had at that time was that I was certain about was my red BMW. But at that point, it wasn't a whole lot of consolation. It didn't mean as much to me at that moment as I had thought it might earlier on. I had heard about a group that was heading out to the Southwest, led by Joan Halifax and the Ojai Foundation. It was a group to go out in Indian country with the Hopi and the Navajo Indians, and I knew I needed to do something different. I needed to change, so I signed up for this group, and I went out there, and we spent about 10 days. I had just been introduced to shamanism, had been interested in studying it, had never been on the reservation before, but we just had a fabulous time on this trip, Greg. We went to the Indian reservation, areas that I had never seen, things I'd loved since I was a kid. But the real turning point for me was one trip we were out at the ancient Anasazi ruins in Chaco Canyon in New Mexico, and a small group of us went into one of the ancient ceremonial kiva structures out there. And these are ancient ceremonial structures about 1,000 years old that were used by the Anasazi Indians and still used today, a version of these by the Pueblo Indians. We went into the kiva with this group. There we were with a Cherokee medicine man at the time and led us through some chants and some drumming, and then we had a chance to experience what they called stepping into the silence, where we all went to an area of this kiva where we could spend some time in personal reflection. And I remember that night sitting down and the drive through Chaco Canyon, I could see the ruins crumbling, and it was reminded me like my life was crumbling around me, and I was hoping that I could figure out something, and the trip would help me do that. And while I was sitting there in the kiva, I had this experience. I was experiencing a tremendous flash of light, and then I felt the floor of the kiva dissolve, and I felt myself falling down. into where I finally landed was this other sort of spiritual reality, a very different place, and it was very, very old and very, very sacred, and it was a incredible opportunity for me to be there and then feel this sense of inner peace and connectedness that I probably never felt before my entire life. And I wasn't doing any drugs or anything. This was sort of a completely spontaneous experience. But I was in this place for a few minutes during this exercise, and then the drums started up again, and we came back into the floor of the kiva. And I realized that I had touched something that I had heard about in terms of some of the shamanic work and these other spiritual realms, but on a very immediate and very physical level. And I knew, when I got back, first of all, I knew immediately that everything was going to be okay. Everything I'd been struggling for all this time, and I also knew that this is a path I wanted to start following. This was an experience, a sense of sacredness that I had been looking for a long, long time.
Wow.
So I went back to work. I didn't want to. I was still committed to my career. I wanted to continue. I liked the work I was doing. I was good at it in healthcare. We felt I was making a difference. But I also knew that this spiritual journey was going to be an intimate part of what I wanted to do going forward. And within 2 or 3 months, my whole life completely turned around. And I was on a whole nother path that turned out to be even much better than the one I was on before.
One of my isms, one of the things that you'll hear me say over and over and over again is the universe first is going to whisper, and then it's going to nudge you. Then it's going to maybe get a little bit more emphatic, and then it's going to take out a 2x4 and it's going to hit you upside the head. It sounds like you had all of the above plus a ton of bricks on top of you.
No, it's exactly right. It's exactly right, and it was a huge wake-up call for me, but also it was an incredible gift. I don't think if I had gone through that trauma, I would have been open and receptive. It was a major turning point in my life.
I want to stop you there because that's such an incredibly important point for a lot of people to hear, that no matter how hideous and hard and horrible it was a gift. That's what I'm hearing you say. Yeah. Am I hearing you correctly?
It absolutely is the case. I never would have probably ended up, or it would have taken me a lot longer time if I hadn't had that nudge and that push.
Yeah, I get it. I have a scar across my face that says, "Oh, now it's time. Why didn't you just say so before?" And the universe went, "Really, really."
Yeah.